In January 2024, the death of 45-year-old business tycoon Robert Maxwell sent shockwaves through Chicago's elite social circles. What seemed like a tragic car accident on a rainy night would soon unravel into a sinister web of betrayal, hidden affairs, and corporate corruption. The investigation that followed exposed a dangerous world of money laundering, offshore accounts, and a murder plot that would destroy multiple lives. On the night of January 15, 2024, darkness wrapped around Chicago's outskirts like a suffocating blanket. The rain fell in heavy sheets, turning Highland Drive into a treacherous mirror of black ice and shifting shadows. At 11:23 p.m., the silence was shattered by the violent screech of tires against wet asphalt. Robert Maxwell's black Range Rover careened across the empty road, its headlights cutting wild arcs through the rain. The vehicle spun once, twice, before slamming into the concrete barrier with a sickening crunch of metal and glass. Steam hissed from the crumpled hood as the luxury SUV finally came to rest, its front end completely destroyed. By the time first responders arrived at 11:47 p.m., Robert Maxwell was already dead. His body slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from a deep gash in his temple, staining his custom Italian suit. The man who had built Chicago's most successful investment firm, who had graced the covers of business magazines, who had seemed untouchable, was now just another statistic, another tragic accident on a rainy night. At least that's what everyone thought. Sarah Maxwell sat in her lakefront penthouse 3 weeks later, staring at her phone in disbelief. The message that had just appeared made her blood run cold. Your husband wasn't just killed, he was silenced. The words glowed on her screen like an accusation. No sender, no explanation. Just 9 words that would shatter everything she thought she knew about her husband's death. Sarah's hands trembled as she set the phone down. The police had been clear. Robert had lost control in the rain. A tragic accident. Nothing more. But as she looked around their perfectly curated home, at the life they had built over 15 years of marriage, a terrifying question began to form. How well did she really know Robert Maxwell? Sarah moved through her silent penthouse like a ghost, her mind racing with possibilities. Robert had always been meticulous, controlled, the kind of man who checked his tire pressure weekly and had his vehicles serviced religiously. The idea of him losing control, even in the rain, felt wrong. She found herself drawn to his home office, a space she had barely entered since his death. The room still held his presence, expensive leather chairs, walls lined with achievement, awards, and the lingering scent of his cologne. Sarah's fingers traced the edge of his mahogany desk, remembering how many nights she had found him here, working late, phone pressed to his ear. The phone. Sarah froze. Robert had 2 phones, his personal iPhone that the police had recovered from the crash, and a second one he used for sensitive business calls. She had never questioned it before. In their world of high finance and wealthy clients, discretion was normal. But now, her hands moved quickly through his desk drawers, searching. Nothing. The safe behind his favorite painting. Empty. She was about to give up when she noticed something. The bottom drawer of his filing cabinet sat slightly uneven. Sarah pulled it out completely, and there it was. A false bottom, concealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a burner phone, a small black notebook, and a USB drive. With shaking hands, she picked up the notebook first. The pages were filled with Robert's precise handwriting, numbers, initials, dates. But one entry made her heart stop. EB transfer complete. 3.5 millimeters final payment. She knows too much. Below it, a name she had never heard before. Elena Blackwood. Sarah's throat went dry. Who was Elena Blackwood? And what had Robert paid her millions to keep quiet about? The USB drive felt heavy in her hand as she plugged it into her laptop. Folders appeared, each labeled with dates going back 3 years. She clicked on the most recent one, dated just 2 days before Robert's death. Email screenshots, bank transfers, surveillance photos. And then she saw it, a photo of Robert at an upscale restaurant, sitting close to a stunning woman with dark hair. The date stamp, January 13th, 2024, 2 days before his death. The woman's face matched the profile picture Sarah found when she searched Elena Blackwood online. Executive VP at a competing investment firm, Harvard MBA, divorced, gorgeous. But it wasn't the photo that made Sarah's blood run cold. It was the email thread beneath it. "It ends now, Robert. I won't be your puppet anymore. Either you come clean about everything, or I will. You have 48 hours. The timestamp, January 14th, 11:42 p.m. Less than 24 hours before Robert's accident. A sharp knock at the door made Sarah jump, the USB drive slipping from her trembling fingers. Her heart pounded as she quickly closed the laptop, shoving everything back into the hidden compartment. It was nearly midnight. Who would be here at this hour? Through the security monitor, she saw James Cooper, Robert's longtime business partner and closest friend. The man who had held her hand at the funeral, who had promised to take care of everything. But now, standing in her doorway past midnight, he looked different, dangerous. "Sarah," his voice carried through the intercom. "I know you're home. We need to talk." She hesitated, her mind racing. James had been at the office with Robert the night he died. He had been the last person to see him alive. With reluctant fingers, she opened the door. James stood there in an expensive black suit, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. But his eyes were hard, calculating. "You've been busy," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Sarah's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" James moved to the bar, pouring himself a drink with the familiarity of someone who had done it countless times before. "Elena Blackwood called my office today, said someone had been asking questions about her connection to Robert." He turned, fixing her with a cold stare. "You shouldn't dig into things you don't understand, Sarah." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. "My husband is dead," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I have a right to know why." James laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Robert died because he made a mistake. He thought he could walk away clean." He stepped closer. "But in our world, Sarah, there's no such thing as walking away." "What?" "Are you talking about Meridian Holdings?" he said simply. "Does that name mean anything to you?" Sarah shook her head. "It should. It's where your comfortable life came from." He swirled his drink. "Robert and I built it 5 years ago. A perfect system for moving money, billions of dollars, through offshore accounts, untraceable, untaxable." His eyes darkened. "Until Robert decided to grow a conscience." Sarah's mind raced. Money laundering. Her husband had been involved in money laundering. "Elena Blackwood was our compliance officer at Sterling Investment," James continued. "She discovered what we were doing. Robert thought he could buy her silence." A cold smile crossed his face. "But Elena wasn't interested in money. She wanted to expose everything. The pieces started falling into place, the transfers, the threats, the accident." "You killed him," Sarah whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. James didn't deny it. "Robert made his choice. He was going to destroy everything we built." He set his glass down carefully. "The question now, Sarah, is what choice are you going to make?" Sarah's hand inched toward her phone in her pocket, her mind racing. James watched her every move like a predator sizing up its prey. "Now you have 2 options," James said, his voice eerily calm. "You can walk away from this, take the insurance money, live your comfortable life, and forget everything you've learned tonight." He paused, stepping closer. "Or you can keep digging." But I promise you, Sarah, that path doesn't end well. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed. A text message. James's eyes snapped to her pocket. "Show me," he demanded. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone. The message was from an unknown number. "I have everything. Robert's files. The proof. Meet me at Highland Park. 1 a.m. Come alone." James's face hardened. "Elena," he muttered. Then, faster than Sarah could react, he grabbed her phone, hurling it against the wall. It shattered into pieces. "You're not going anywhere," he snarled, all pretense of civility gone. But Sarah had already seen what she needed to. Elena was alive, she had proof, and she was offering a way out. "Robert trusted you," Sarah said, backing away slowly. "You were his best friend." James laughed darkly. "Trust is for people who can't afford loyalty. In this business, Sarah, everyone has a price." His hand moved to his jacket pocket. Even Robert had his. The glint of metal made Sarah's blood run cold. "A gun." "Sit down," James ordered, gesturing to the couch with the weapon. "We're going to wait right here until I hear from my people. Once they find Elena, this all goes away." Sarah's mind raced. The kitchen was behind her, the knife block on, the counter. If she could just... "Don't," James warned, reading her thoughts. "You're not as clever as you think you are. Neither was Robert." But Sarah wasn't listening anymore, because she had noticed something James hadn't. A shadow moving. Past the penthouse windows, a reflection in the glass. Someone was on her balcony. The glass balcony door exploded inward, sending shards flying everywhere. James spun around, his gun raised, but he was too late. Elena Blackwood burst through the broken door, her own weapon trained steadily on James. "Drop it," she commanded. Her voice sharp as steel. James didn't move. "Elena always had to be the hero, didn't you?" "I said drop it." Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. Sarah used the distraction to dive behind the kitchen counter, her heart thundering in her chest. The tension in the room was electric, dangerous. "You know what's funny?" James said, still holding his gun. "Robert thought you were the weak link, the one who would break." He smiled coldly. "But you weren't going to take the money, were you? You were gathering evidence the whole time." Elena's expression remained hard. 3 years. 3 years I watched you and Robert build your empire on blood money. Drug cartels, arms dealers, all of it flowing through Meridian Holdings." Sarah's breath caught. The truth was worse than she'd imagined. "But Robert wanted out," Elena continued. "He was ready to confess everything, and you couldn't let that happen." James's laugh was hollow. "Robert was weak. He knew the rules when we started. No exit strategy, no loose ends." "That's why you had him killed," Sarah spoke up from behind the counter. "Staged the accident, made it look clean." "Clean?" James spat. "Nothing about this business is clean. Robert knew that. He knew what would happen if he tried to walk away." His eyes darted between Elena and Sarah. "Just like you two know what happens now." It happened in a flash. James turned, firing at Elena. She dove sideways, returning fire. The penthouse erupted in gunshots and breaking glass. Sarah screamed, covering her head as bullets whizzed past. When the chaos cleared, James lay on the floor, blood spreading across his expensive suit. Elena stood over him, her gun still raised. "It's over," Elena said, breathing hard. But Sarah knew better. She could see it in James's eyes as he lay there, a sinister smile spreading across his face despite the blood. "You think this ends with me?" he coughed. "Meridian Holdings has tentacles everywhere, banks, politicians, police." His eyes locked onto Sarah. "You'll never be safe, none of you will." Then his phone buzzed. One message appeared on the screen. "It's done. Cleanup needed at the penthouse." Eleanor's eyes widened. "We need to go, now." Sarah and Eleanor raced through the service elevator, the sound of approaching footsteps echoing down the hallway above them. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before James's cleanup crew arrived. My car's in the underground garage, Elena said, punching the button for P2. Everything we need is there, Robert's files, the offshore account details, everything. Sarah's mind was spinning. How long? How long were you gathering evidence? 2 years, Elena replied, checking her weapon. At first I thought Robert was just another corrupt executive, but then I saw the scale of it. Meridian Holdings wasn't just laundering money, it was building an empire. Politicians, judges, cops, they're all involved. The elevator doors opened to the dimly lit garage. Elena led them to a black SUV parked in the shadows. Robert found out I was investigating, Elena continued, unlocking the car. But instead of turning me in, he wanted to help. He had been looking for a way out, a way to make things right. Her voice softened. That's why they killed him. Suddenly, tires screeched at the garage entrance. Black sedans appeared, blocking their exit. Get in. Elena shouted, jumping into the driver's seat. Sarah barely had time to close her door before Elena slammed the accelerator. The SUV roared to life, tires spinning on concrete as they shot toward the second exit. Gunfire erupted behind them, bullets, pinging off metal. Elena swerved, taking corners at dangerous speeds, using the garage's columns for cover. There's a laptop in the back, Elena said, never taking her eyes off the road. Black bag. Get it. Sarah reached back, grabbing the bag. Inside was a laptop and a thick manila envelope. Open the envelope, Elena instructed, as they burst out of the garage into the rainy Chicago night. Robert left you something. With trembling fingers, Sarah opened it. Inside was a letter, written in Robert's precise handwriting. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm already dead. I know you must have so many questions, so much anger. I built our life on lies, on blood money, and for that, I can never be forgiven. But I'm trying to make it right. Eleanor has everything, proof of every transaction, every crime, every person involved. The laptop contains access to accounts I've set up. Clean money hidden from Meridian. Enough for you to disappear, to start over. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger sooner. I'm sorry I brought this darkness into your life. Be safe. Be smart. Trust Eleanor. I love you, Robert. We're not out of this yet, she said, checking the rearview mirror. They're still coming. We need to get to the FBI safe house. The rain intensified as Elena's SUV sped through Chicago's empty streets. Red and blue lights flashed in their rearview mirror, but these weren't police cars. Sarah knew James's influence ran deep into the department. Those aren't real cops, Elena confirmed, taking a sharp turn down a narrow alley. Meridian has their own security force, ex-military. They're here to clean up loose ends. Sarah clutched Robert's letter, her mind racing. How deep does this go? Deeper than you can imagine, Eleanor replied, swerving to avoid gunfire. Meridian isn't just a money laundering operation, it's a shadow empire. They own judges, politicians, police chiefs. A bullet shattered their back window. Elena cursed, pressing the accelerator harder. There's a gun in the glove compartment, she said. Ever used one? Sarah shook her head but reached for it anyway. Her hands trembled as she felt its weight. Last resort, Elena assured her. We're almost there. The SUV burst out of the alley onto Lakeshore Drive. The FBI safe house was just minutes away. But then Sarah saw something that made her blood run cold. Roadblocks ahead. Black SUVs waiting. Elena, she warned. I see them. Elena's jaw tightened. Hold on. She yanked the wheel hard, sending them crashing through a construction barrier. The SUV bounced violently as they went off-road, tearing across an empty lot toward an abandoned warehouse district. The safe house is compromised, Elena said, checking her mirrors. We need a new plan. Sarah's phone buzzed, another message from an unknown number. Warehouse 17, loading dock, 5 minutes. It's a trap, Elena said, reading the message. Maybe not, Sarah replied, remembering something. Robert used to own property down here. Warehouse 17 was where he started his first company. Elena hesitated, then nodded. If Robert set this up, the SUV roared toward Warehouse 17, their pursuers close behind. As they approached the loading dock, metal doors began to rise automatically. "Robert," Sarah whispered. He had planned this. They shot inside just as the doors slammed shut behind them, cutting off their pursuers. The warehouse was dark, empty except for a single shipping container in the center. Elena killed the engine. Now what? Sarah moved toward the container. There was a keypad on its door. The date we met, she realized, punching in numbers. The container, Ducker swung open, revealing a fully equipped command center. Computers, servers, hard drives. "This is it," Elena breathed. "Everything we need to take down Meridian. Every transaction, every crime, every person involved." Suddenly, banging echoed through the warehouse. They were trying to break in. "We don't have much time," Elena said, quickly downloading files. Once this gets to the FBI, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Armed men poured in, led by a face Sarah recognized, Thomas Reed, James's head of security. "Step away from the computers," he ordered, weapon raised. But Sarah saw something they didn't. A small red light blinking under the container. Another of Robert's contingency plans. She grabbed Elena's arm. "Run!" The explosion rocked the warehouse, sending flames and debris shooting skyward. Sarah and Elena dove behind a concrete pillar as the command center erupted, taking Thomas Reed and his men by surprise. The blast was calculated, precise, just like everything Robert had planned. The files, Elena shouted over the chaos. "Tell me you got them." Sarah pulled a hard drive from her pocket. She had grabbed it seconds before running. Robert knew they'd find us here. Through the smoke and flames, they could hear sirens approaching, real ones this time. The explosion would bring every first responder in Chicago. This way. Eleanor led them toward a side exit, but stopped suddenly. Thomas Reed emerged from the smoke, bloodied but alive, his gun trained on them. "You really think this ends here?" he snarled, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. "Meridian is everywhere. You'll never—" A single gunshot cut him off. Reed collapsed, revealing a figure in the doorway, FBI Special Agent Marcus Chen. Helena's deep cover contact. "Actually," he said, lowering his weapon, "it ends exactly here." Within hours, the warehouse was swarming with federal agents. The hard drive contained everything. Every transaction, every bribe, every murder ordered. By Meridian Holdings. The arrests started at dawn. Corrupt cops, judges, politicians. James Cooper was found dead in Sarah's penthouse. Whether by his own hand or his associates, no one knew. 1 week later, Sarah sat in a federal safe house, staring at the final piece of Robert's legacy, a video he had recorded days before his death. "Sarah," his face filled the screen, tired but determined. "If you're watching this, then Elena found you. Everything I built, everything I became, it was wrong. But I couldn't leave you with nothing. The accounts Elena showed you are yours. Enough to start over, to be safe." He paused, his eyes filled with regret. "I know I can never make this right, but maybe in the end I could do one good thing. I love you, I'm sorry." The screen went black. Elena entered the room quietly. "The task force is moving in on Meridian's overseas operations. It's really over." Sarah nodded, wiping away tears. "What happens now?" "Now?" Elena managed a small smile. "Now you disappear. New identity, new life." Robert made sure of that. Sarah looked out the window at the Chicago skyline, the city where she had lived, loved, and lost everything. But maybe, she thought, that wasn't quite true. She had lost a life built on lies, but gained something else. The truth. "One last thing," Eleanor said, handing her an envelope. "We found this in Robert's other properties, thought you should have it." Inside was a photo. Sarah and Robert on their first date, young and in love before the money, before Meridian, before everything went wrong. On the back, in his handwriting, "Remember us this way." Sarah clutched the photo, ready to leave the I past behind. Sometimes she realized the greatest act of love is sacrifice. Robert had sacrificed everything to give her a chance at a new life, and she intended to use it. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on our daily updates. And check out another shocking case.